And all of a sudden, there was a presence, and I felt more love than I can ever describe. It was just marvelous. It just seeped right into me. And then I heard words, and the words said, "This is where you came from, and this is where you will return."
Yes, Lynn. So thank you so much for giving us the chance to speak to you today. So Lynn has spent 70 years of her life studying spiritual philosophies in search of the truth. You have researched over 2,500 NDE cases in collaboration with Dr. Jeffery Long of the NDE Research Foundation for his best-selling book, Evidence of the Afterlife. You're an author yourself. The book is titled Beyond NDEs, The Next Step in Near-Death Experience Research, which I'll link in the description below. And you also had the three spiritually transformative experiences, three STEs, which I'm hoping we'll be able to discuss today. So thank you, Lynn, for giving us a chance to speak to you. And I wanted to start this conversation by asking you, how did you end up pursuing this path?
Well, thank you for having me, by the way. But how did I get started? Well, I think it started um, as a child. I was about 8 when my grandfather died, and that made me realize that someday I would die. And that frightened me. And my mother was an atheist, so there was no religion at all in our home, which isn't unusual today, but it was back then. Uh, and so asked her what happens when you die, and she just told me it did. You just disappeared,
That's it.
and
Yeah.
that scared me. I didn't want to disappear, so that got me going. I think first went to I went to churches around where we lived, and then but I was trying to see if they had the answers. And I got frightened because I went to the evangelical church, and the preacher told me that I would go to hell, and I was 9,
Wow.
and so I was terrified.
Yeah.
My mother said, "That's it, you're not going anymore."
That's great. Well, so here we are, about, I don't know, 80 years later or not, and you had the
Yeah,
chance.
actually, I'm 87 now, and that was at 89 at 9 years old. So then I started doing proper research into, spirituality and not really spirituality because all that was available back in those days um, was religions. Like, it didn't have the free thinking we have today. And so I started to study religions to see if, first of all, I began looking for what was going to happen to me after I died. Then that sort of morphed into the history and how it evolved into what it is today. And then that also morphed into the search for truth, wherever that would lead me. And I haven't stopped.
That's great. And I know you had the three spiritually transformative experiences when you three children were pretty young. Would you mind telling us a little bit about it?
Sure, I had a near-death experience, but it was so small that I don't even usually talk about it. And I was very, very ill, and I was lying in bed, and I had known that I was gonna die, and I told people, and I went to the hospital, and the doctor said, "It's just the flu, go home." And so Um, I was laying in bed, and the next thing I'm out, and I'm in this tunnel, and it was very smoky gray, and so that I was there with it with my guide, and that we were going up in the tunnel, and as we're traveling up, this big booming voice comes down and says, "Take her back. It's not her time." And so he says, my guide said, "But she died." And the voice said, "Take her back. She has much left to do."
Okay.
So that was it. That was my big, I never even got out of the tunnel. So, and compared to the NDEs that I've read, you know, I mean, that was minuscule.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. The other experience I had, which was really significant and taught me a lot after the fact, but at the time I didn't understand this. And this would be 1973. And I was doing the dishes, and there's a window above the sink, and I'm looking out into the backyard, and there's a tree, an apple tree. And actually, it was springtime, and the tree was in blossom. So I'm looking at the tree, and all of a sudden, I became the tree. I literally was the tree. There was no separation. And then I was the bird in the tree and the bug the bird was gonna eat. I was everything. I was every kind of life form I could think of, vegetable as well as, um, animal kingdom. And, it was really cool. It didn't last very long. I think that it probably only lasted about 30 seconds, and bang, I was right back again. Um but it was when I finished, I'm standing there at the sink, and I said to myself, "Oh, that's cool." And that was the I didn't think that anything more would happen. I wish I had known because, I would have marked it on the calendar. But anyway, a few days later, now it's always happened in the afternoon when the children were either at school or laying down for the afternoon nap. So the house is nice and quiet, and, this time I'm washing fingerprints off the hall walls, and all of a sudden, I'm not seeing the wall anymore. I'm seeing an atom and the nuclei with the electrons going around, and then that expands to our solar system, and the sun with the planets going around, and then that expands to galaxies and more. So it was like the micro to the macro universe that I was traveling, and while I was having this expansion happening, I was getting information, and the information said this didn't just happen. There was order and planning and an intelligence behind it all. And so that was cool. And then I got a message, and I really didn't like this message at all. I didn't understand it, and it frightened me. The message said, "Your being is intricately involved with the operation of the universe." And I thought, how could I have anything to do with the operation of the universe? No, that's ridiculous. I didn't like it because it frightened me, because I thought, what do they want me to do that I'm going to mess up? So that was the next one. And when I had the negative feeling toward it, it stopped. That was the end of that one. And then the next one was again a few days later, and this time, and again in the afternoon when things are quiet, and I'm picking up toys and things in the living room and tidying up. And all of a sudden, there was a presence in the room with me. I didn't see anything. I saw was my room, but I could feel this being, this entity was there. There was no question. And I felt more love than I can ever describe. It was just marvelous, beautiful. It just seeped right into me. There was just nowhere that I wasn't feeling this. And So that was cool, and then I sort of felt like I was connected to this being or entity or whatever, and I didn't understand that, but okay, you know? And then I heard words, and the words said, "This is where you came from, and this is where you will return." And that was marvelous because that helped me with my fear of death.
Yeah.
And so, I was much better. At that time, I was a serious nail biter. I bit my nails past the cuticles. I mean, there was nothing left to bite. And a few weeks later, I looked out and I've got nails. That was a shock. And so I was off. I walked off the ground for about 3 months after that. I was nothing bothered me. The kids' noises, or you know, just I was in bliss.
Oh, that's great. Well, so I didn't know you had a near-death experience. So, my question to you is: so we know for a fact that NDEs, they seem to one of the after effects is that they seem to unlock some latent abilities, so to speak. So, I wonder if you were able to, you had those STEs as a result of your near-death experience.
You know what? I think that I had that at the SGE because my death experience was so small and I
Oh,
missed the
interesting.
message.
Right.
So I think that this was sort of compensating or getting the message through to me.
Interesting. That's great. Well, so I'm also particularly interested in the after effects. So I'm not going to ask you whether you're afraid of death, because clearly that's no longer the case. And I wonder if are there any other changes that you've encountered in the way that you look at life?
Not at right away, because as I said, I didn't understand what this was all about. It was just I had these cool experiences, and then what?
Mm.
And so I really didn't have any knowledge coming from that. And the knowledge came as I continued my research and studying, and and now we were into at the 70s. That's when the whole movement of open spirituality began, when the Beatles went to the ashrams.
Yeah.
That was what began it all. And um, so I could go into these new ways of seeing, and I researched just about everything, from Ouija boards to ghosts, uh, to oneness. And I finally came to understand oneness. It was many years later. My daughter was 4 when I had those STEs, and she was 15 when I finally put the pieces together. So
Mhm.
that's a lot of years,
Yeah.
11 years. So anyway, but what happened was I was reading Joel Goldsmith's book, um, Parentheses in Eternity, and I was reading The Course of Miracles at the same time. And so the 2 of them together, it just went click, 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 and I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've analyzed over 2,500 NDE accounts. Not many people have done that. What is the
Yeah.
most relevant thing that you've learned from all this research?
Oh my, I'm still learning. I'm still I that was, I began that about 18, 19 years ago, um, and I just couldn't get enough. I have a bit of things, several things that I want to talk about that are lessons that I have not heard from other people. The oneness has come out, and like that the knowledge about oneness is so wonderful that people are getting it all over the place. They're understanding that there's only one being and we are all part of it. And that is fantastic, that there's only, and that's where we are right now. and that this is an illusion, and that we're, you know, experiencing this to give back to self. You know, and that so our being is important because we give back, and so it's sort of a gift to ourselves. So with that in mind, people very frequently talk about the overwhelming amount of love and the connection to the universe and they're just blown away by all this and the enhanced visual and so forth, and they're just thrilled about that, which is great. But one of the things I'm not picking up is the understanding that they are the love. What they're feeling is themselves because they are source. And so all of that knowledge and all of that love and everything else that they're feeling is them. And I don't hear people talk about that. They still talk about it like it's given to them
Something
rather than
outside of you. Yes.
yes. So that's one of the things. Um, Another thing that I came up with that and this is fairly recent, but I just love it. I'm just so I can't wait to write my next book because it's not in this book. Okay, so we have source. And what do we know about source? We know that source is God, as intelligence beyond anything that we humans can conceive. We know that source is conscious because it communicates with the people, with the souls. And we also know that it's love. All of those things we know. Okay. And so I see source in the creation of just spreading its own consciousness out like a huge flood of water that just permeates every corner. And then I see that as energy. So that's the universal consciousness. Okay. And then we humans see that energy as particles.
Mm.
And so those particles, which are filled with love, each one of them is crammed full of love because it can't be anything else, is atoms and the cells within our bodies. And so that I mean, there's the circle. And so how can we be sick? How can we how can we ever have anything wrong with us? And I don't mean just physically, but we can't do wrong. There's no possibility to do wrong. It just can't happen because we are magnificent.
Oh, I love that. So, one of the things that you mentioned on a few podcasts that really caught my attention, and you briefly just mentioned it, is so you say that creation is to give back to source. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I see source as being before creation, and I don't even know if that was possible, but just in my mind, I see source as is without creation existing in nothingness, and that there's nothing around, but we still have this great intelligence, and we still have this universal element, this intelligence, this love, this consciousness. It's still there, but there's nothing. And I think that would almost be painful for Source. So I think that our being is to help get back to Source. Source
Mm.
creates in order to know itself. And we've heard that from other people. And that's what I think it's all about is a way to be, to acknowledge my own existence.
Wow. So, next question is probably going to be a hard one to answer, but I'll try anyway. Do you have a favorite NDE account?
Oh, I do, I do.
Yeah.
I have a few, but anyway, my very favorite is Hafur, Hafur. I don't know, where she is. This is a lady, she was just an ordinary housewife, and she had death experience, and I'm not even sure that she explains why she had the death experience. She just did, and, but the knowledge that she gained was just I mean, I would recommend everybody reading her experience. Another one is DW, and these are on NDERF. DW was in a black mood, um, and just given up, and was so depressed, and she just didn't care anymore, and so she was committing suicide. And her report about that is just amazing. Um, but when she got to the other side, she thought she would disappear, and she didn't. But she also was surprised that she was allowed to go into the light. She entered into the light and was filled with all this love. And she say, "Wait a minute, I killed myself. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be given all this
Oh,
love."
darn.
But but there it was, you know, she was just filled with love. And so her experience during her time in the light is beautiful, and how she gives it back, her love back, and then it just flows back and forth. And for her, she's giving to something other than herself because she doesn't know about the oneness yet. And so it really is a very beautiful account.
That's great. So here's a question for the skeptics out there. What would you recommend them to do to perhaps start to come to terms with the notion of an afterlife?
First of all, we desperately need um, more research. And we're not, it's there. It's there. For example, there are people who die, wake up. I suppose I'm not supposed to say the word die, they passed. Um, they're in the morgue in a state of rigor mortis when they come back. They've been gone for 14, 13 hours.
Wow.
And they wake up in the morgue surrounded by bodies or wherever in a drawer, you know? So, um, but that would be recorded in their records. Now, of course, it's going to be recorded that, oh, well, we were mistaken. She wasn't dead after all, you know? But, but come on, rigor mortis? That, I mean, um, there's another one that was recorded all the way through, and he died for 29 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, and that one was recorded. Um, so that's one of the things. The other thing is that if we collected all the reports of people who talk about um, come back with information that they couldn't possibly know, or see things or describe things. And one of the things that blew me away was that when they're on the other side, that they can, or when they're out of their body, they know what the doctors are thinking, feeling, experiencing. They know what the rest of the medical staff are. They know the issues that they are dealing with in their own lives. And that's not being recorded. That's not being, you know, and those kind of things we need to check, to capture. But yeah, there's tons and tons and tons of proof. I mean, and then there's the blue shoe, which is quite famous, and it's on Google. Just Google the blue shoe, and it's a woman who had a death experience while she was being operated on and or near death, and she saw a blue shoe on the outside ledge of the hospital, and, um, and so when she came back, she told them about it, and she said, "There's this shoe there, and it's a blue one." So anyway, people didn't believe her, and, so she insisted, and they sent the social worker down to talk to her, and so the social worker went looking for it and found it. Now, this was a huge hospital and had different wings. This woman was being operated on, I think, the 3rd floor or something. The shoe was on the 2nd floor. It was on the outside, and it was in a completely different part of the hospital than where the operation was happening. So, you know, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, no, there's many veridical cases that have been verified externally. So if one is curious enough, I think they can dig deep enough and find enough evidence out there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
We need to open our minds. Well, not us, um, but we need somehow to convince science to open their mind, at least to some degree, and see that at least look at this. I live in a very I'm Canada's Christian belt, the Bible Belt. I live in our Bible, and of course, I'm far from it. But if I ever mention NDEs to doctors, oh, that junk, that sip, they won't even talk about it,
yeah.
which is sad.
Do you feel we are seeing some improvements, that perhaps we are entering a new era that is characterized by a shift from a material to a more spiritual society? And this is perhaps the consequence of the advent of field near death studies and many other emerging fields, right? Do you feel that way?
Yeah, actually, I think, and this is not in any book, I think that if we really think about it, the world is going to be a different place 5 years from now.
5 years. Oh, wow. That's very
5 years.
optimistic.
So people should be preparing now. And yes, I think that end of ears, the information they brought back, they're changing the world. And so, yes, 5 years. And I'll tell you why. The boomers are into their 70s, late 70s and 80s, and they are going to be dying off. And so by 10 years, they will be gone. And I'll be one of them. And so, you know, I, they, who's left to take over? You know, we really have to be prepared. And I don't think we are because we've got this, it's almost a, it's almost a classic novel, um, battle between good and evil right now, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, but yeah, we need to know that in 5 years, we should be prepared.
That's great. Well, only time will tell, but I am hopeful, like yourself. I do feel that, yeah, there's a shift going on.
Yeah.
And so I'm really hopeful for what the next decades are going to bring. That's great. Well, Lena, I have a one last question for you. What's the meaning of life?
Oh, the meaning of life is to be, to experience, to love, to give, to just know that. And one of the things that I used to be a family counselor, and one of the things that is so sad is how many people hate themselves. I don't mean dislike, I mean hate. They treat themselves worse than a criminal. Oh, anyway, um, I think we really desperately need to get that message out that we are magnificent and there is no such thing as negativity, you know? It's a dream. This is an illusion. Now, I know that a lot of people, that's a hard one. So I don't know that we can get that message over to the general public, but we can get the message of their beauty.
Yeah. Why do you think people hate themselves so much? I mean, obviously, it's self-imposition, right? Because what we're also learning from NDEs is that the creator doesn't require anything of us, that he, she loves us exactly for who we are. He accepts us for who we are. So we really have nothing to lose and nothing to do. So
That's
what?
right.
So what is it then that we're so judgmental towards ourselves?
I think that that's a long answer, okay? First of all, we've been taught by the church, and I don't mean that isn't a blame statement because that goes back to the very beginning of of the church and the development of the Catholic Church, and they thought that was, and so, it's just I'm teaching the next guy and the next guy, and so it's just a myth that keeps going and going and going. So that's one of the things is that we've been taught that there's such a thing as sin and evil, and there isn't. There's no evil. There's no hell. The hell that people do go to hell and they experience hell, but what they're experiencing is their own creation because they created we create this life, we create, we're a source. We can create anything we want. So, yes, so I think that that's one of the reasons. The other reason is because in our our growing up, we look to correct
Right. Yes.
the child as the child is developing. But unfortunately, we correct negatively. We say, "Oh, that's wrong, that's bad, that kind of thing." They We don't, um, help the child to understand. And so and we reach to the and we pay way more attention to negative than we do to positive as well.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
in our lives, I mean, if something negative happens, we're on it. But if it's nice, if it's good, oh well, that's fine.
We
We
take it
just
for
leave it.
granted, right? Yeah, that's right.
So that's why, because it's been indoctrinated into us. Another thing is guilt. We are raised in guilt, you know, and that is everywhere. And so we really do. And advertisements. Oh, the commercials. I mean, they pound us. They tell us,
Yes, they
we're
do.
not good enough because we don't use their product, and nobody's going to want to be, you know. And we know that's not true, but when you get that in your brain over and over and over, you get it.
Yeah. Always striving for a higher standard, right? Absolutely. Well, that's under the basis of a consumerism. Obviously, makes perfect sense. They want you to feel that you're missing out on something. They need to buy the new product, the latest version of the iPhone or whatever it is. That's great, Elena. Wow, brilliant. Thank you so much. Do you have any parting messages you would like to leave the audience with today?
Um, I've said it. The the magnificent. I think. Okay, I will tell you that when I was a little girl, um, 7, I was 7 years old. I was assessed as mentally slow and put in classes for kids who were mentally slow. And I was in grade 2 for 3 years. And so when I was 16, I quit school and of course, and became a hairdresser. So what was my point? Was to trust yourself because when I found out years later, at 31, I was 31 when I found out that I was well above average in intelligence. Then I had to create a new me because I didn't. The me that was a loser, down on herself and hated herself. And so I had to, one of the things that I did was, first of all, I got an image. And I'm telling you this, not because of me, but to help others. Maybe this will help them. I got an image of how I would like to be. what kind of person I would like myself to be. And to be honest, I never got there because the person I had was very plastic and efficient and, all egghead. So I didn't get there, but that's okay. I love what I got. Okay, the other thing I did was I challenged myself. I challenged to find out what I could do. And I love challenging myself. I still challenge myself. I'm 87 and I keep pushing myself to find out what more I can do, and so I taught myself how to draw and, do art. And I taught myself how to write and, you know, all the different things. So, what I'm telling you, if you want, my last word is trust yourself.
Yeah, I love
Don't
that.
buy all the bull that you've been given. Trust yourself because we really are magnificent.
That's great. Well, with that said, I think not much else needs to be added. Lena, thank you so much for all the work that you've been doing and that you keep doing, which is wonderful. And yeah, I wish you all the best. Bye for now. Take care.
Yeah.
All right. Hi there. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the IANDS community, please leave a like, subscribe, and maybe share with the ones you love. New episodes are out each Friday. Until then, enjoy the stream we all call life and live the love you wish to see in the world. Bye for now.